analog muting. I have this double check so that I don't accidentally go live.
Okay. Hello and welcome, everyone. I think we're now live on stage with our session about IDS-Enabled Gaia-X Lighthouse projects here at the EBDBF. Thank you for having me and for the invitation to give a short presentation. I think we have like 20 minutes to give you some more insights on the different topics that I brought to you. First of all, my name is Christoph Mertens. I work for the International Data Spaces Association as head of adoption. As such, it's the job of me and my team to bring the de facto standard that is created within the association by our members to real life projects. And therefore, I'm more than glad to show you two of them today. Let me first arrange here all the windows that I have to keep in mind. Okay, we're good to start. So first of all, I think let's create some agreement before talking about data spaces and how they are enabled technically. The sharing of data is really the key aspect that we are looking at for future data economy at this point. Therefore, the association, the IDSA, already 6 years ago almost started to create a standard. Yeah? And we will have a closer look at that in a second. The thing is, it's not only about the sharing of data. So the technical enablement, I think we have standards out there already existent that enable you since decades actually to share data from one company to the other. We talk about things like EDI, we talk about things like platforms or cloud systems that you with your partners can agree on to share data. What is new in data spaces is the way to be part of this space, and also the fact that you are able to define rules under which you would like to share this data. So you can stay in control over your data treasures and do not lose control. You're the sovereign over your data. This is the core belief of more than 130 members with whom we create the standard, and not only the technical standard, but also governance aspects and legal aspects of data spaces are discussed within our working groups and in this community. What I would like to do before going into Gaia Lighthouse projects is to briefly give you some more insights in the technical setup. So data spaces need also infrastructure, and you as a participant, you also have to be enabled to be part of a data space. So let's go through this and have a quick look at how this really works. Companies are connected to data spaces via connectors. These connectors are your starting point where you define the rules that I mentioned before. So please delete the data set after 5 days. You can only access it from Monday to Friday. These sorts of rules and many more can be defined in your connector. And before sending it, so the data to another company, you have the potential, or the connectors will negotiate these about these rules. And in case of an agreement, only then data access is granted and or the data is shared. The bare minimum setup for such a data space is connector and identity provider, and also not so much of a component, but an essential part of the story, certification. All the components have to be certified that are used, and also the operational environments have to be certified. So in case you have a connector, where is it deployed? Is it running under your desk on the computer where everyone going through the office has access, or is it hosted in a safe environment with key cards to access the server rooms? These things are also very important to know for you as someone who shares data into an environment where you need or have the need for high security. Yeah. So this is the bare minimum setup here. Everyone has an identity, everything is certified, and you have a connector to share data with other participants. On top of that, we have some optional components like the broker. And I just would like to give a quick run through here, not talking about the technical aspects really, but what kind of functionality is brought to the data space by these components. So the metadata broker, how it is actually called, is the component where you can search for data. So in case you are in need for a specific data set, let's say an easy example, weather data in the area here of Dortmund, where I am sitting currently, but you don't know where to get that, the broker is the component where you can discover connectors that are connected to data endpoints, where you get your hands on the data that you really need. Another component, more or less equal principle, but more on the application and functionality side, you can search for applications in the App Store, deploy these applications in your connector. And this is a great part, and maybe let me go back to this slide. So arrow number 2, in case you share data to a connector where the applications that work with the data are deployed inside of the connector, technical enforcement of the policies is enabled. So you share your data, the data is processed, but the rules that you defined beforehand are technically enforced. Whereas arrow number 1, where the data might go also to, here in this example, an ERP system that is not deployed inside of the connector, but is only connected to it and is not direct part of the data space, there you lose the technical control, but still you remain the legal control. So the agreement on the policies is a binding digital contract that also, of course, has to be agreed upon and is binding for both parties here. Then clearinghouse is currently at the current state of play something that is used as a sort of transaction log. So if 2 parties, company 1, company 3, exchange data, the fact that they did and the information about the metadata is stored in the clearinghouse. You can use that for billing functionality. So receive data set 5 times, paid 5 times, like this. But also as another layer of security. This is something that really is important. So no one can say at the end, I never received the data set, when it is also logged here in the clearinghouse. Vocabulary provider is where the semantic part of the story starts. The general data space only asks you to use one specific ontology, which is in IDS context the information model. This is an ontology that allows you to describe yourself as participant of the ecosystem. So to which company do I belong? What kind of data sets do we offer to the data space? Or what are we searching for also? What kind of environment do we have? What is the level of certification, since we have different trust levels in certification? All these self-description information is stored in the information model. But when it comes to domain-specific data, these ontologies that are required to label your actual data are not provided via the standard, but the community itself, the data space participants have to agree on a certain set of vocabularies, and the agreed ontologies can be stored in the vocabulary provider, so all the participants can have access to these ontologies. This is so far to the standard, and let's step a bit back and not only have a look into the IDS perspective on these things. I found this slide in the Gaia context, and I would like to walk you through, at least partly, through two of the 4 Lighthouse projects that are mentioned here. One is Gaia-X, and the other one is the German mobility data space. Before doing that, let me notify you also, or encourage you to also ask questions in the chat. So when we reach the end of the presentation, I can also have some questions from the audience. Feel free to do that at any point in time. Okay, first let's have a look at Catena as a project from the automotive sector, initiated by the automotive industry, with the aim to come up with the first data-driven value chain. The idea really is to exchange data within the entire supply chain, and not only from first tier to second tier and maybe even to third tier, but really in the entire supply chain, following the principles that I explained earlier. So you are sovereign over your data. You clearly, by stating the rules, can select what agreements other recipients of the data have to stick to, possibilities of legal binding contracts and technical enforcement. These are things that are envisioned here in the Catena project. This is already an older slide. Back in May of this year, you already are able to see that already then large companies, especially OEMs, BMW, Mercedes-Benz, Volkswagen, are part of this project, were part of this project, still are. Also internationally, so DMG Mori is partner here, SAP, a software provider. It's a large consortium, and having a look at the webpage, you will be able to see that the community grew much bigger in the past months. And you also have the possibility to become a member here in order to work in this field with the partners. So back to the technical perspective of this also, what you can see here in the stack of Catena-X is that the foundation is a Gaia-X compliant IDS system. I won't give you now a walkthrough through all the aspects. Let's maybe have a look at the service map, and here especially at the bottom part, where we again have a closer look at the Gaia-X compliant IDS system. What you will see when you go through the different fields here, they are in most of the cases strongly related to the infrastructure that I just showed you before in the circle drawing. So we have a clearinghouse and logging services. We talk about vocabulary providers. We have app stores, connector as a service offerings, brokers, and many more components. So you can see that the principles that are envisioned for the Catena data space are more or less what we envisioned in the IDS standard. And also in the Gaia context, having a look at what I presented you in the circle from a functionality perspective, it is not so different from what we have written down in the IDS standard. The vision of Catena is to grow. So the slide with the partners I showed is from May. I already told you it grew since then dramatically, and next year they want to reach 1,000 partners within their network. And I think this is a very, very strong point and shows scalability of the approach. This combined with the international perspective that this project also has. I think currently they call it Europe-X as a part of their growth strategy, is very promising and will be a very important international project where data sharing is at the core, and everyone will be able to stay in control of their data. The mobility data space, as also maybe from the automotive, or at least close to the automotive sector, but more focused on the mobility aspects, is another project that is aiming at building a Gaia-X compliant IDS-based ecosystem. Of course, in the mobility field, the challenges partly are a bit different. So we talk here about climate change and sustainable mobility for people who live in cities and on the countryside. Technological sovereignty, data security, distributed data, competitiveness, and ability to innovate. These are the challenges that the project wanted to tackle. And the way they do this is manifolded, but again, not having a look at the deeper technical insights here, but more on what is the aimed functionality that has to be offered to participants of data spaces. We again talk about transparency and sovereignty, a one-stop shop that allows you to not have to create accounts for several cloud systems or platforms, but with the connector as your gateway towards a data space. This is the one-stop shop, user-centric approach, security, full added value for other users. These are the ways they envision to tackle the challenges that they identified in the mobility field. And also from the beginning, there were a lot of huge partners. Again, we have here the row of huge OEMs from the automotive sector like BMW, Mercedes, Volkswagen. In addition, you also see companies that are not producing cars, but that offer mobility services like Deutsche Bahn or FreeNow, who might be familiar to you. Also other players that already have platforms established in the field of automotive and mobility like HERE or Caruso are part of the project, which also is a very important point here because it shows that data spaces are not there to eliminate the business of existing platforms, clouds, and other services. It's more about embracing these existing service offerings and bringing them as an offering to the data space so that the participants of data spaces can benefit from this. You know? The success story of mobility data space is something I believe other sectors also can learn of, and the specific ingredients might not be replicatable for every sector. But I think one part of the key factor was to bring together important people from the sector of mobility that have the same vision together, that want to have a data space for the mobility community, for service providers, as well as those who are in need for mobility, and to create something that can be used by everyone. And it was first starting with a dialogue process. The data space topic is something where you always have to start by learning, and therefore these projects, it's also more or less similar with the Gaia-X project, were able to lead to success. For all projects, including also the General International Data Spaces standard, open source is a very, very important topic, and you will be able to find GitHub repositories for all of these sectors. I put them here for you on one slide to have it envisioned in one graphic. It's absolutely worth to explore these repositories to see where the different projects stand, how you also can contribute. So in case of IDSA, contributing to creating the standard. Like I said, it's an embracive approach where we want to include many different solutions and ideas also, which is channeled via these open source projects. And same is true for the specific projects here that embrace the contribution of many. On large scale, the Data Spaces Business Alliance, I know that it also was announced yesterday, and I think also the day before. You might have heard about this. The joint endeavor of the Big Four when it comes to sharing data, BDBA, Fireware, Gaia-X, IDSA, is something that is now live. And we really want to invite the community, so the members of the 4 associations and foundations, to contribute to what we are doing here. And just to highlight maybe one thing where it is very concrete for you to step in, the data spaces radar that helps us to create transparency over the existing data spaces out there, not only necessarily focused on the IDS reference architecture, but also the other solutions that might be out there, is something where you already today can register and become part of a radar that will show how mature are the different approaches, how close are they already to the market, how can I contribute, and therefore this is a very, very great start to get in here. The next thing, and maybe also last, that I would like to invite you to is a matchmaking event on December 16. As you might know, matchmaking for European data spaces, following the European Commission calls for the different key sectors that they defined, is very important. The CSAs that were published just recently make clear that there is the need for a data space driven discussion in many different fields. You can see them here right in the middle. And we would like to invite to become part of this discussion, to go together with other companies, build consortia, and bring the data space topic further, not only in the automotive and mobility sector, but in many, many more sectors. Yeah. With that, my final call for action: let's build data spaces, and by making sure that we build on common design principles, that they are also interoperable. It does not stop in one specific sector. We have to also think it a bit bigger and make different sectors interoperable with each other. And with that, I'd like to say thank you very much again for the invitation. I can see there was one question in the chat. Let me read it out for you. So what data format is used for the ontologies and vocabularies? I think currently you are able to use different formats. So this is way down to the technical part here. You can use RDF, I think, at least for the IDS part of the story, and this is what they use also in mobility data space. Yeah. In case there are no more questions, again, thank you very much for your attention. Feel free also to reach out to me afterwards. I will be also around here at the EBDBF to listen to some sessions. And yeah, I'm glad to get into discussions with you. Thank you very much. Have a wonderful day, a wonderful EBDBF event, and see you around. Goodbye, everyone.